Let's make a doll. Today I'm making a witch and I'm going to tell you about witches. If you want a more detailed video to sew up witchy poo, see the links down in the show notes below. Paranoia of witches emerged in Europe in the 1400s, and within a century, witch hunts had become commonplace. Most of the accused witches were widows, single women with cats, presumably, and other women on the margins of society, particularly the old ones. Between the 15 and 1600s, to 80,000 accused witches were put to death in Europe. And Germany had the highest execution rates of witches, and Ireland had the least. England passed and then repealed and then reinstated laws that made witchcraft punishable by death in the late 1500s. And just as things were settling down across the pond, it started heating up in the American colonies. You see, religious folk had come to America to practice their extreme religions, and they dictated strict standards for thoughts and behaviors. Some colonies even had laws about attending church. Witchcraft was a capital crime in Connecticut in 1642, and they used biblical passages to support the execution of witches. Survival was tough in the colonies. People were dying of disease, and there was always the constant threat of war. Things weren't going well in the New World, and people were eager to have a scapegoat. And who better than women whose lifestyle deviated from society's expectations? The Salem witch trials began after two young girls started having crazy fits. In modern times, we know these symptoms can be from eating a fungus that grows on wheat, like in biscuit dough. In the end, around 150 people were accused. 12 women and 6 men were put to death for witchcraft. And it's ironic that legend tells us witches were burned at the stake, because in reality, they were hung in the gallows. Except for one elderly man by the name of Giles Corey, and he was laid out under a board and pressed to death with heavy stones. Others died in jail waiting for a trial. It's likely that many of the accused underwent some kind of a witch test. It was very scientific, of course. It was based on the idea that witches float. It's the idea that water is pure and it would reject the evil of the witch, therefore allowing her to float. Either way, the person's going to die, so, great test. It's only because of the media that witch hysteria faded in America. Ah, yes, the media. A mysterious author penned a fake article in 1730 for the Pennsylvania Gazette. Some think it might have been Ben Franklin, but who knows? The article was written in the style of today's Onion, and it made the witch hunting mania look really stupid. Soon enough, people came to their senses and started to calm down about the whole witch thing. But people had already suffered, and something had to be done to keep it from happening again. So new laws were created after that to protect people who were wrongly accused of a crime. Thanks to Hollywood, most people have a stereotypical image of a witch. Maybe her skin is green or she wears a pointed hat. Maybe she flies on her broom and has a black cat. She's hideous and unlovable, single and alone. She curses and hexes and bewitches. And while there are good witches, most are villainized and blamed for crop failures, poor weather, and disappointing sex lives. Casting spells, boiling big black kettles over an open flame in the forest, and always with the warts, right? They're the antagonist in old fairy tales like Snow White and Hansel and Gretel. And maybe it's just me, but it seems like women my age are played mostly as witches and evil stepmothers. Is that some kind of messaging about menopause? It's a little too coincidental for me. But anyway, make a witch. They're the spirit of Halloween, and I hope you'll use this free pattern to put one together. The link to the pattern is in the show notes below, and check out my other patterns on Etsy. Bye!